Welcome to my first attempt at online cooking recipes for you guys to cook at home. So yep, this is my kitchen. Today we're going to make a chocolate crunch slice. It's an Australian version of the chocolate crunch slice. I'm using cornflakes, but you can also use wheat bix if you don't have cornflakes. So please don't go raiding your pantry or cupboard, making a mess everywhere. So basically I've got everything ready to go, measured out. Now I will put down below all the ingredients and the amounts. I've also got my trays ready, my measuring equipment. With the butter in this recipe, it asks for melted butter. So there's two ways to melt butter, obviously in the microwave, in a glass jug or a glass bowl. Be very careful with that, it's not just going to get hot. So you need to use an oven mitt or a tea towel. Or you could use a saucepan or a pot on the stovetop, but please watch it and don't burn it. This recipe just asks for melted butter. Doesn't have to be cooled or anything because there's no eggs in this recipe, so it's pretty simple. So in here I've got 3 cups of cornflakes. I have measured out my sugar, which is 1 cup of sugar. Sounds like a lot of sugar, but it is a chocolate crunch slice, so it must be sweet. I've also got 2 cups of self-raising flour, and I've also got 4 tablespoons of cocoa powder. That's pretty it, bar the butter. And the butter will bind this all together and bring it together. So I'm just going to go ahead and make it in this big glass bowl. Another thing is too, I have got scales to measure out the butter because it is 240 grams of butter. You don't need to use scales, you could just use a block, and there's a 250 mark. Obviously you can back it just a little bit. If you have just a block, you can cut that off. So straight into it, I'm going to get into it and get the butter out of the microwave, which has been sitting there for a little bit and it's cooled now. You can see that the butter is separated from the butter fat down the bottom. That's just happens. Okay, so cornflakes. To that, I'm just going to add the flour, give that a bit of a mix up. Okay, and the sugar. Try and mix your dry ingredients first before you put the wet in, because then it makes it harder to mix up if you don't do it that way. The cocoa powder. Now, being prepared with all the ingredients weighed out and measured out, not just for filming purposes, but it's called mise en place, which is French for everything in its place. That just makes it easier when you go to put it together, a lot easier, a lot simpler, and you know you've actually got all the ingredients ready to go. So if you can see that there now, I've got all my dry ingredients all mixed up, ready to go. Just put these in the dishwasher. Okay, so now just add the butter. Just add the whole lot, doesn't really matter. Now this is going to be baked in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. It will be soft when it comes out, so you will need to have a cake cooler or something just to let it cool down, because then we're going to ice it once it's cooled down. Now please don't try and ice it beforehand, otherwise, as you know, the icing will hit the top and it will run straight off. I'll have 2 recipes online. I'll have the individual serve portion, which you'd obviously need a smaller tin, probably that size to smaller. If you don't have that one, that's fine. The one I've made today is for a family of 4, so it's a whole slice, which will go into a standard, 20 to 25 centimetre rectangle tin. It's not very deep, so you don't want it too deep. You don't want this slice to be too thick either. So you'll see here now that, that it's starting to get really thick. But I don't want to have any flour lumps in there, so you really got to mix it nice and well to get rid of all those flour lumps, which I'm pretty sure, looks at that, I may have got it. Just going to get right down the bottom. It's really thick. Right, ready to roll. Tip it into the slice tin, prepared slice tin, with a bit of spray or butter and a bit of paper on top. And obviously, I washed my hands beforehand because I'm going to have to go back to using my hands now to get it all mixed into that tray. Lots of washing up. So it's got to be fairly flat before you put it in the oven. Reason being is because it's a dry mixture, it's not going to level out that much when it does go in. So that's why we do it now, just to level it out the best you can, or as smooth as you can. Great slice. It will last for 2 or 3 weeks in an airtight container in your pantry. On top, once we've iced it, you can put some hundreds and thousands or chopped chocolate or whatever you want, really. It doesn't really matter. Just something sweet, something that looks good. Okay, now I preheated my oven to 180 degrees. And again, like I said, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to bake. So that is about it. Chocolate crunch slice going in the oven now. So when we come back, I'll ask. So I'm going to take that chocolate crunch slice out of the oven now, because it's ready. Very carefully taking these out of the oven. Remember, use a mitt or a dry tea towel. So it's come out. It's still a little bit soft to touch on top. That's because it just came out of the oven. So naturally it's going to be soft. And yeah, so it's softish. It's now starting to cool. I'm going to leave it on that cake rack until it completely cools down. It's the measured out icing sugar. In this case, for this big one, it was 3 cups. I think it's going to be too much for this slice, so I might just take a little bit out. I'll put my cocoa powder in there anyway, which is 3 tablespoons. I'm going to take a little bit of that icing out because I just think it's going to be too much for that tray, but I could be wrong. That's the fun about cooking, is you can change it as you go, make it a little bit, add a little bit, just to make it so it suits your needs. For my tray, for this size, I'm going to get it just boiled the kettle, so I'm just going to get the hot water. And instead of pouring over the top, because I know it'll go everywhere, it'll be too much, because I only need 3 tablespoons. So I'm just going to get the tablespoon first and just add 2. So I know it's definitely going to take the 2 and give that a bit of a mix. It's only like a light icing. It's not really strong icing. Definitely need another tablespoon. On top, we're going to put hundreds and thousands or just something to go on top. Right, so now I am going to use the rest of the icing. So like I said, you can add to stuff as you go, on a little bit more. And before I put more water in, to allow for that bit extra, I'll just give it a stir. Probably half a tablespoon. Don't want it too runny. Again, you want it to set on top of your slice. So that looks pretty good. It's just a light cocoa chocolate icing. Okay, now the easy part, just tip it on the top and spread it around. So there we go. So again, cooking should be fun, should not be stressful. Normally I have music or a movie going on around me just to pass the time. Make it easy for yourself. Have everything ready to go in front of yourself. Again, you don't have to film yourself doing the whole thing. Like this, you might just decide to take a photo of your end product, but yes, you do have to make it. So maybe a couple of photos as you go, step by step. So show the ingredients on your bench, mixing some ingredients, a photo, and then maybe the photo with the icing on top before you put it in the fridge to set, perhaps, not sure. So I'm gonna smear this around everywhere. And then, like I said, if you've got hundreds and thousands, you could sprinkle that on top, or crushed up, grated chocolate, doesn't matter. White chocolate, dark chocolate, doesn't matter. It can be anything. If you don't want anything on top at all, that's fine as well. Don't worry about it. So I'm just trying to smooth this out now. It's very, very sticky. That's it. I mean, if you really wanted to get technical, put a little bit of effect on top, you could use a fork and you could just gently run your fork through and give it that swirl pattern. And this is what they do on top of the American US chocolate concrete cake, they call it. which is just this same slice. It's exactly the same. They also use cornflakes or wheat bix, but traditionally it's this one's the Australian one, which is with the wheat bix. So that's it. Again, sprinkle on top some hundreds of thousands or whatever. It sits in the oven. Sits in the fridge on something to cool down, or I can just leave it on the bench to let it cool as well. But it's going to take a while because it's still pretty hot. So be very careful. Clean up your tray. Have everything ready to go. Be careful of the hot water. Safety first. So here you go. I look forward to seeing everyone's chocolate crunch slice. Thank you.